Hi, and welcome to The Grand Balance, a weekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. In our last episode, we talked about the need to make sure that even though we're taking on more responsibilities, managing work, family, and now adding in grandkids, we can't forget to focus a little time on ourselves. In today's episode, we're going to talk about friendships and how important they are in our lives. My friends and I have often said, we don't know what we would do without our friendships, so I think it is important to highlight their significance to our mental health and our quality of life. Before we get started with today's topic, Angela and I would like to thank everyone for their support and all the positive feedback we have gotten. We are super excited about this podcast and really thank anyone who has given us support, listened, rated, subscribed. Anything means a lot to us, and we hope to continue to get even more support and grow our community even larger. Angela, we were just talking about how crazy this week has been so far. How do you find that you have been able to balance your work demands, family, and now adding the grandson into the mix while making sure you still have quality of time with your friends?
It has been a busy week. I think it's only Wednesday, and I was feeling all day today like it was Friday. I think I put in my full 40 hours just in the last 3 days. So
same, girl, same.
I know. But we made time on Sunday to get together with our very good friend that introduced us, who we announced we were doing this podcast with.
She was so cute when she found out and so supportive. We love you, Kay.
Yeah, but we had to really calendar that in. I think we had to put it on the calendar 3-4 weeks in advance just to make sure we could fit it into our busy schedule. So I think that's one of the things for me that is something that I have to do. I have to schedule time, make time to be with my friends. And that sounds really terrible, I think.
No, that's reality, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, but, I want to put my friendships first, but it is hard. Family first, then the career, then the friends. And in fact, that's been for me, that's how it's been for, the last 30 years. When I had my children, I recall I was a traveling businesswoman when my kids were growing up. So I had a really hard time making friends when they were younger. I would show up in my suit, drop them off at school, leave. A bunch of moms were hanging out, having coffee, playing bunco. Yeah, I was pretty jealous because I couldn't do it. But I just had to, I had all of those obligations. I had to do my job. And I didn't have time for friends. So I'm not a good example for a lot of working women and now working grandmas. I think I need to start focusing more on that than I ever have.
I think as we age too, like you said, friendships are so important. And we just need to surround ourselves with like-minded, supportive women that understand what we're going through.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my grandmother, who had many, many grandchildren, had lifelong relationships from second grade all the way into her 90s before she passed and her friends passed. And they made a commitment. I mean, they did so much together. They made time for each other. And my grandmother was a working grandmother too. So, I always question, how did she do it and why can't I do it?
I think, too, it's different personalities. My grandma was also really social and had the same close-knit group of couples. They would do their monthly bridge outings. They would travel together. They would get together for parties of every occasion. And then we jumped to my mom, who wasn't as social, who had a very close-knit circle of friends and kind of limited it. So I do think it comes down to personal preference somewhat. But again, no matter what your preference is, I do think we need to surround ourselves with supportive, loving friends.
It seems like, Sharon, in just the short 2 years that I've known you, you really take time for your friends, and you've built such a large friend network. I'd love to hear from you the tips that you have, because you didn't have as much support as I did, being a single mom. So you had way more responsibilities. How did you make time for your friendships?
I think that's part of it, though. As a single mom, you have to build your community. And so with two children, often I couldn't be at two places at once. And I did have a really, really strong network of friends that I knew I could trust with my kids. I am probably a little overprotective and didn't want to just leave them. So I made sure whoever they were with, I knew well and could trust that they were going to take good care. I think throughout my life, I've been able to foster friendships in different stages. So you have the high school friends and you continue those friendships and you foster the ones in the end that have a lot in common with you. And then you move on to the college friends. Same thing. It kind of whittles down to your top one or two, but they're people that go through life with you. I have my best friend from college, who's my daughter's godmother, that we have literally gone through ups and downs of life together. And I don't think there's anything she doesn't know about my life. But then again, sometimes we don't talk for a month, and it's one of those friendships is always there. And then you have your friends from different stages of your kids' lives, your work life. And I just think, same as what you were saying, you have to schedule it in. If it's on the calendar, it happens. So I think that just taking a priority of making the time is really the way to do it. And of course, it's fun too to get out. Easier said than done with all of our crazy schedules, but it always ends up, you don't regret spending time with your friends for sure.
Yeah. So how do you describe the difference between friends and acquaintances? Or because here's the reason I'm asking this question.
There's a big difference to me.
Yes. And I don't make time for acquaintances because my time is so limited with all of the things that we're balancing. So if I'm going to make time, I want to make it with what I'll call my true friends, right? The ones that I know will have my back always. That can be friends from high school, or it can be, in fact, who I consider some of my closest friends, I actually met through work as clients. Like, we had so many opportunities to bond over work and struggling, women battling for a voice in the, in the tech world and things like that, that we had some really deep conversations and talking about family and managing it all. Some of those former clients have become my best friends over, neighbors or folks that, might be part of the community that I run into that I consider more acquaintances. So do you think it's important to take the time to nurture those acquaintances, or just commit your time to just those deep friendships, which has been my route?
I think the latter, the same thing. Especially as we get older, I think it's more important to surround ourselves with people that matter to us, whose opinion we value, who will support us. I think acquaintances, of course, it's nice to be friendly, cordial, polite, but to make extra time for, no. I don't think it's valuable. I don't think it adds value to your life.
Yeah. And with the level of prioritization we have to make with everything that we're balancing, I'm with you. Like, they're at the bottom of the totem pole, let's go for a walk one day or this or that. No, if it's not more of a true friendship, I don't know if I have the energy and the time to commit to nurturing those acquaintances into something more.
No, I agree. And the other thing too, with the free time that you do have to give to friends, you want to be able to be yourself. You don't want to have to censor what you're saying or worry about it being used against you or thrown behind your back. So I think that is why we pick and choose the people that we truly do know we can trust and make time for them.
Yeah.
Because we only have so many minutes in the day, right?
That's right. And family's first, so we have to be choosy. Speaking of being choosy and, focusing in on those real deep friendships, I mentioned in our previous podcast that I would be highlighting other inspirational working grandmas, and I'd like to introduce my first. So
Yay, I can't wait.
As we can talk about friendships and how deep friendships are the ones that we need to prioritize, I'd like to recognize Gayle King. You all might know Gayle King from CBS News morning show. That's the news show that she anchors now. But most people know Gayle King as Oprah Winfrey's best friend. And, a lot of people over the years have talked about how she is in the shadow of Oprah. She's only made it because of Oprah and things like that. Think about how hard it must be to be Oprah Winfrey's best friend.
And to have confidence in your own talent and your own abilities. That's true. Like, people are probably always trying to get through you to get info on Oprah or to get an in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would have the strength to endure all that criticism that she was getting and things like that. But after reading about her and watching her and Oprah, they have their own podcast or show called the OG on YouTube, and they've had their deep friendship for over 40 years.
Wait, Oprah and Gayle King have a YouTube show?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I'll
I
have to
don't know
check
if
it
it's
out.
still going on, but it was not too long ago, and it was called the OG. It's for Oprah and Gayle, but it's like old school,
Yeah, no, I'll definitely check it out. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, but they talk about their friendships, and what I really loved was how Oprah was interviewed about their relationship, and she said, "You know what? A true friend can't be jealous or take advantage of you in any way." And even though everybody was criticizing Gayle King over the years, Oprah never felt that. She always felt that Gayle King was on her side. She had her back. And in fact, Gayle is definitely getting hers now, being the anchor of CBS Morning News, as well as she was on the latest Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
No, wasn't that amazing?
Go, Gayle. Like,
Wow.
that is crazy. So she's got 2 grandbabies. She has this amazing career, and she gets the Best Friend Award.
And she looks pretty dang good.
I know.
Right?
So she is this week's pick for an inspirational grandmother.
I love it. Yes, I could completely agree.
So speaking of friendships and how we develop them, we've talked about how we created friendships when we were children or through school. What about creating friendships at work? I mean, we're all still working. Is it too late? Have you developed some deep friendships through your jobs over the years?
It's funny because I think when you're younger, your entire friendship group is primarily who you're working with. You see them every day, you go out at night. And then I find as you get older and family becomes a priority, those types of friendships, either you find you have more in common with them or less, and your complete social circle is no longer just your immediate coworkers, but then on occasion you have a lot in common with 1 or 2 of them, and you can foster really special friendships because you have a lot in common, you understand each other. So I think it kind of goes from a huge amount of coworker friends to maybe 1 or 2 that you find that stand out, that even as you move on to different jobs, you put the effort into maintaining that friendship because you had more than just work in common with them.
That's so true. In fact, there's a woman that I work with now who used to be my first boss 25 years ago. And she hired me. She didn't know this when I interviewed, but she hired me when I was pregnant.
Oh, no.
I was able to cover it up pretty well. I was only 5 months. I wasn't showing too much, but she offered me the job. And I said, "Thank you very much. I'm pregnant." And she was so amazing. Back 25 years ago, this was unheard of.
Right.
She said, "That's great. And when you have the baby, why don't you start working from home?" And I was floored because, nobody let you do that.
That was
back
unheard of back then.
Exactly. And we developed a really great friendship. She ended up leaving. She got me my next job. And then over the years, we stayed in touch. And then a year and a half ago, she reached out to me wanting to join the company that I'm at now. She's there now, and we're working together again.
Full circle, right?
Full circle. And we actually work on some of the same projects together. And we care so much about each other's children. And we just stayed in touch all those years. And I feel like it's somebody that I made a real deep connection with. Now, we have to put work first, and we have to be serious, and sometimes we have to debate and disagree on things, but the friendship really will come first.
And it's nice when you're working with her that you can truly trust her because you have such a long track record.
Yeah, and in fact, I had to recently perform her performance review, and I was so stressed out about it.
That must have been so weird.
I was so stressed out, and I called her, and I was like, "Look, I need to do this. I'm going to be fair." And she was so kind. She's like, "Of course you will. I know you'll be fair. That's what I love about you. You are fair. I have no worries, even if you have to tell me the things I don't want to hear, but I have no worries that you will evaluate me fairly and provide great feedback of what I'm doing well, what I can work on to do better. I have no doubt in your ability to evaluate me in this way.
That's awesome. You know, it's funny. I just came to mind that two of my closest friends I started out not really caring for when I first met them. And it's such a funny thing in work environments and in friendship, how your first impression of someone can be so off.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, you're
Isn't
bringing
that
back
so funny?
memories. I had one colleague who we had it out one day, and I said, "Why do you not like me?" And she said, we were like really having it out. And I said, "Why don't you like me?" And she said, "Because you say I too much." And it was like a slap in the face, but it was something I needed to hear. Like, okay, I'm not thinking like a team player. I'm just thinking about me. And so once we had it out and I was able to admit that, hey, maybe I was being a little selfish and just thinking of myself or taking credit that maybe the team should have the credit, that really turned me around. And we ended up being such good friends after that.
I know, isn't that so funny? I guess every time when your kids were on teams and they would say there's no I in team, you would laugh.
I'd be like, "No, you
Bring
get
it
up
around.
and you be the best player there is, and you take all the credit." No, I actually I don't practice what I was preaching.
That's funny.
I do now, but way back then when I was young, early in my career, I had lots of faults.
Yeah, that's funny.
And in fact, as I had children, my level of maturity just continued to increase the longer I had children.
Well, children will humble you quickly.
Absolutely. And it makes you prioritize on things that are more important, and you need to let things go.
Yes, I completely agree. And especially inconsequential things, it's so much easier just to walk away, not give them space in your brain, and move on.
Right. So when it comes to friendships, like I said earlier, you are kind of my idol and the master of managing all of these friendships that you have. Literally, I need to know, how do you make time? I know we said scheduling or, calendaring these meetings, but there's got to be some proactive activities that you take to set up dates or whatever that you have with your friends.
Well, remember too, I don't have a husband to prioritize, so that does open up some time. But as far as different friendships from different areas, I think it's just a matter of continually making sure it happens. And also with the same friends, they are as active in getting together as well, because it's a two-sided friendship. So if it's once every 2 weeks, once a month, once every couple months, as long as it's a continual thing, I think the friendship will last, and it's something you put effort into. It is easier to now with all the social media avenues and kind of keep caught up with people's lives, seeing pictures, etc. So you kind of know what they're doing, and then you can check in person, because that's important as well. Every month or two, catch up on what the real life is, because we know what's shown on social media isn't real life. It's just a highlight reel. So it's nice to check in and get the real down to earth, what's going on, how are you, how is your heart, how is your head type of conversation. But I think it's just that, being proactive, exactly what you said, and making sure that you do make the time.
Yeah. And again, we talked about this earlier, but I am pretty terrible at social media. I'm going to get better. You're going to help me. This podcast will influence me to do that. I actually gave it up for Lent, so I have been missing out on a lot. When I really think about it, I was more of a watcher than a poster anyway, but it did allow me to see what was going on. And if it was something that, a friend of mine was going through, that maybe it required me picking up the phone and said, "Hey, are you okay?" Or it's been too long. I'd love to get to lunch. It kind of sparks that initiative to focus on the friends, because it's a nice reminder. And so for me, I think the one bad thing about giving up social media for a period of time is it was out of sight, out of mind. And that you can't have that with your friendships.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword, because social media, of course, is also a time suck. So that part of it where you can productively use your time is good. But I agree with you. A lot of times it is a way to keep in touch and know possibly when to reach out to someone, or at least get a hint to. I was thinking of another thing too. that helps maintain friendships in a couple different really close friends that I have. I have the friend I spoke about, which was a best friend from college, and we plan a trip every year. So we make sure and make time, even though we can't talk as regularly as we did back in when our kids were young or before our children. We have a week that we spend that we can stay up late at night, chit chat, and that is a really good refresh for us every year. And I have another friend here that we traveled far and wide with baseball. And once baseball ended and we stopped traveling together to watch our boys play, we have also made it a point to take trips together. And it is such a nice way to reconnect and spend quality time with someone that is just a great all-around person to spend time with.
That's a great tip for me to really maybe outline the friends that I want to make sure I stay connected to, and taking the time to reach out and plan something, even if it's just, like you said, once a year or a couple of times a year. I do have a really great friend from high school. I consider her one of my closest friends. She's one of those that I could tell anything to and she wouldn't judge. Like, I could be a complete maniac and she'll
Those
still
are the
be my
kind of
best
friends
friend.
you want, for sure.
Yeah. And we can be completely honest with each other. And I miss not spending time with her, but we do try to get together once a year, but that's not enough. So I think maybe, like you said, really focusing in on those really deep relationships and prioritizing the time for them. Even if you can't get all of them, forget those acquaintances we were talking about. But here I am in my business speak. Inventory your friends.
I love it.
And then make a to-do list of, what you need to do to strengthen those friendships.
Your checklist.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Another idea I have that I know has worked really well for me is use little pockets of time you have. I have a friend that has been instrumental in helping me with my daughter. Our daughters have been best friends since they were little, and often our schedules are crazy. And if we have a half an hour or 45 minutes to get together for lunch, actually, several of my friends I've been able to do this with, call up last minute and say, hey, can you meet at X place? I have 30 minutes. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And of course, you can't take it personally when it doesn't work because it's last minute. But sometimes you both just might happen to have that same 30 minutes free. And it's a quick way to check in and give a hug and say hi.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. Although I probably wouldn't do it just because I'd be too worried that they'd say no. And then I'd be like, oh.
No, that's what I mean. You can't take it personally. You just throw it out there. I have a friend who moved to Portland that she used to do that throughout the workday. We would just throw it out there. Sometimes we could, sometimes we couldn't, but it was so much fun the times we could to do a quick catch up and then move on with our day.
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, I'll have to really think about taking the steps to really nurture those friendships more than I am now. Because as you mentioned earlier in the podcast, we usually outlive our husbands, or, women live later than men. And so for those of us that are married, it is really important that we nurture those friendships so that we are not left later in life being lonely and not having those social circles.
Right.
I can tell you my mother-in-law, she's 94 now. She's slowing down, but up until 2 years ago, she was going to the YMCA a few times a week, and that was her social network. Like,
that's
she
awesome because it's like killing a bird with two what is it? Killing. What is the saying?
Killing a We have to look that up. Google that.
It's the saying, killing two birds with one stone.
There we go.
You get the health and the socializing, which is funny. I have a friend who I've walked with and worked out with since, I'm going to say, over 15 years. And it's probably due to her that I don't have to go to professional therapy, because it's one of those friends, like you said, that you can say absolutely anything with no judgment. You kind of have to vent sometimes, get it out, tell your deepest, darkest secrets. And again, you get a walk, you get some exercise, you get some free therapy. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of walking, another way my grandmother, again, I'm so enamored with how she ran her life.
No, that's so awesome, though.
I know. Another way that she maintained friendships was she was a mall walker.
I remember those days. I wonder if they still have that.
I'm not sure, but she would every day, go to the mall, walk the mall 10 times or whatever it was. And she had this really dear friend. Her name was Pat. And in fact, for my high school graduation, she and Pat took me on a cruise, me and a friend on a cruise for my high school graduation.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, but they mall walked up until they couldn't, walk anymore. And so walking is just so important, but you can mix friendships, spending time with friends, with exercise. I know our good friend, Casey, I guess we can use her name now, right?
I referred to her earlier as Kay, so we can go with her whole name, I guess.
Okay. Well, you don't know her last name, but
True.
Our very good friend Casey, that's how we would connect. We would always walk. And it was, after work, we'd meet somewhere and just walk. And that's how we got to catch up. And we would talk about everything while we were walking.
Yes, I've walked with Casey, and your legs practically fall off because her stride is so long, but
yeah, and
she's a good walker.
And we did walk the other day when we all met for lunch. We walked first, so.
Yes, excellent. It's funny you mention walking because that is another way that I've connected with my daughter and my granddaughter. The problem we're having is she has 2 big dogs that want to get out, and her dogs are great walkers, but my little guy has severe arthritis, and I didn't want to just leave him in the house. He used to walk with us all the time and now has a lot more difficulty. So I was trying to figure out what to do to get him out, and this will be our first fabulous find because it was something I was hesitant to spend money on, and it's been one of the best purchases I've gotten since a baby was born.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about this fabulous find.
Well, I searched for a baby/pet or dog stroller, and of course there are systems and they're $1,000 up, and I didn't really want to do that, especially because I didn't know if it was really going to work. So finally I found this Evenflow. It's called the Evenflow Pivot Troop Child and Pet Modular Travel System. And I was hesitant. It was $100 off, so I think it was like $300, and I was not sure it was money well spent, but I got it in. It has the baby infant seat, it has the toddler seat, and then it has this cool little compartment under with a ramp that the dog can just climb into, and he actually stays there. He looks around, and it's been very much a fabulous find, and I would highly recommend it for anyone who has a dog that has a hard time walking, or even some of the smaller dogs that can't walk a very long distance. Highly recommend this because it has been awesome for us with my daughter, her 2 big dogs, the baby, and my little guy he's only about 7.5, but with the arthritis in his leg, it just makes it so he can get out and join the family fun.
That sounds wonderful. Thanks for sharing. And also for me, I don't have a separate stroller. So we're constantly like moving the stroller in one car out into the other. They have a fancy one that I would never spend that money on for me as a backup. But if there was something more reasonable and it can be dual purpose like that, that sounds like a great idea.
Right. That was actually a bonus too, that I do have a stroller on hand now, so I'm not juggling, and a car seat for that matter.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
So it has worked out really well. And like I said, I was hesitant to spend the money, but in the long run, I would do it all over again for sure. It was well worth it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Sharon.
Also, Angela, I'd like you to find me some special fabulous fine music so we can play it when the fabulous.
I gotta go like something like an alarm or like a bell or
Exactly.
something. Okay, I will try to do that.
That would be a fun little thing.
Okay, maybe for the next one.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody for joining today. As we mentioned in the beginning, we wanted to make sure that we spent quite a bit of time talking about focusing on ourselves because it's so important that we stay happy and healthy for our new grandchildren. So in the next episode, we're going to focus on the second half of self-care, and that is exercise and staying healthy.
Yes,
Yep.
I was going to say, because it's so critical with a grandchild to stay healthy, because I never knew how much I'd be getting up and down off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned, everybody, and thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. And follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas Podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.